Hello everyone. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Burlington engine. It's a very old athearn. We're going to be opening it up and relubricating it because it's a little noisy when it runs. I picked this up for 10 bucks at a train show a couple years ago. I needed its wheels cleaned and its gears have just sounded horrendous ever since. So we'll take it apart, clean up the motor, clean up the gears, put her back together, and hopefully it'll run better. Let's take it over to the track and I'll show you what I mean. So in lieu of a proper train layout, I've rigged up a little setup here. We've got our controller, some wires, some very fancy electrical tape on the rails, and just a short stretch of track. Let's see how we do. Okay, I'm putting a little power in the tracks. So as you can see, it's not the world's worst runner, but it is rather noisy and it's especially bad at high speeds, so let's open it up. Okay, let's start taking this thing apart. So first we're gonna just take off the shell here. Okay, there's the inside. As you can see, it's got an old motor, but a 5-pole motor, so it's good stuff. Motor appears a little loose. I could change that. But yeah, let's start taking it apart. So first, we're just gonna take out this single screw in the bottom here. This is what holds the motor in and connects it to the rest of the body. Okay, now we'll just gently remove our motor and the drivetrain here. As you can see, there's a couple of washers there and some grease that I need to clean out. But I'll be very careful not to lose said washers. That's it. 1, 2 over there for the moment. Okay, in order to get these trucks off, they have these little U-shaped clips right here. So you just kind of squeeze it and pull it back, and it just slides right off. The same thing over here. Squeeze the clip, wiggle it back off, it comes right on off. Okay, now we should be able to meander. Yep, there goes the truck. There's one, and oh boy, there's the other. Okay, so I've gone ahead and taken the trucks off and disconnected them from this wire here. And now we're just going to take them apart. These old athearn trucks are very simple. They're just held in place by one screw here. So you just take the screw out, but be careful not to lose the insulator sleeve between the screw and this plate here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right there. Careful not to lose that. And then this side just should pop right off. Yep, it's held on by a little bit of friction, but nothing else. Then these two plates pop off. And then again, there's another plastic piece in here to keep the two sides isolated. Careful not to lose that. It doesn't fall off very easily. Either way. So we've got that off. Now we just have the truck. Right there. So we are going to attempt to remove this. If I remember right, these are darn hard to get off. They have these little tiny, dinky little clips right in here that hold it on. They're not the more modern athearns that have clips on the sides here. So I'll attempt to get this off. Pardon me, this may take a little while. And these are not cooperative little guys to take off. So I took these trucks apart off screen. Took me quite a while. Not very good at taking these darn little spring clips apart. Didn't want to break them. But here they are. You can probably see, I don't know how well you can see, these are copiously over lubricated. And that's none other than my fault, because I have been inside this locomotive many, many times, trying to make it be a little quieter. So we are just gonna start cleaning stuff up, getting some of the grease out of here, etc. Also, just kind of a point of interest, these old athearns, they have 5-pole motors, and they appear to be geared down to be really good at slow speed running. As you can see, they've got double worm gears in here, and a reduction gear that's housed in here, which is much bigger than the one it interfaces with. Either way, let's get cleaning. Very, very small washers. I'm going to be very careful not to lose those. So we're just going to use a Q-tip here with a little bit of rubbing alcohol on it, kind of get some of this everywhere. It's pretty good as a degreaser, at least for kind of light stuff. If it's really bad, soap and water will work a little better. So yeah, we're just going to brush some of this on, then we're going to take the clean end and kind of remove any of the grease and oil and stuff that's left on here. When this came, it was drier than a bone, and yeah, I may have over lubricated just a tad, but hey, we're gonna fix it now. All will be good. These little worm gears are actually quite interesting. They're made out of brass, I believe, and they interface with plastic gears, and I don't know that I see this very often. This old Varney I've got over here, it's metal on metal, but yeah, I don't know, maybe I just haven't been inside enough steam locomotives. I can't say I boast quite the collection of steam locomotives or anything like that. I'll take these wheels out of here. Again, just crazy amounts of lubricant in there, but just wipe it down with some rubbing alcohol. Looks like there's a bit of hair, so we'll be very careful to get that all out of there. Yeah, then just clean it up. Not a particularly complicated process, just takes a little time and a little knowledge how to get these things apart and back together in order to accomplish. Ooh, it's not good. Appears we have I don't know if you can see, but this gear is tall, and this tooth looks like it might be snapped. So I don't really know how much trouble that'll cause us, but it's something to keep in mind if this stuff is giving us problems. This kind of holds the grease that drains out, which you can imagine when you put way too much grease in, you end up with a bunch of grease and oil. I think I just used oil actually. Sitting at the bottom here. So we're going to be careful to get all of that out. Bottom is quite greasy as well, it appears. And just same as everything else. Just add a little rubbing alcohol and wipe it back off. Hopefully taking any grease with it. Okay, it's less greasy. We'll call that a mild success. Then we have this little not worm gear, rather gigantic gear actually in here. I think I need to pop it at the bearing here to let it out. There we go. Took this little piece off. And then I think this just slides out the bottom then. Come on. Oh, do we need to take the bearing off the back? You can see this has two bearings on it. There we go. Got the big gear out of there. Careful not to lose that bearing. There goes one of our delightful wheel sets. Yep, just a little more rubbing alcohol. Yeah, maybe I did put a little grease in here. These gears appear to be quite greasy. Yeah, just your classic over lubricator. So I went ahead and did some cleanup work off screen. Here's the result. Obviously, stuff is a little cleaner now, which is very good. to show you just how copiously over lubricated this was, I used Q-tips to clean it out. Here's the Q-tips. Yeah. Took a lot of grease out of there. Okay, so we're gonna put this back together now. This isn't too complicated, I hope. Just backwards, we'll put these trucks together. So you take one of these, you add 2 sets of wheels. Make sure that these little worm gears, or the little gears that the worms will interface with here on the wheels, are the right direction. It's very easy to test for this. You just drop this gear in, see if it spins nicely. If it does, you're good, and this one appears to be fine. So then after that, you take one of these gears. You want to make sure you get the right one, because it would really kind of suck to get this all put together and then not have it interface properly. So this is the right one for here. I'm just going to take this rear bearing off, toss the gear in here, and then, I don't know how well you can see this, reaffix the rear bearing. Now we'll just prop that up right there upside down so it doesn't fall off while we lubricate this part. So for lubrication, we're just going to take a tiny bit of grease and apply it to each worm gear. So when I say a tiny bit, I literally mean a tiny bit. So this is plenty for 2 worm gears. Just a little bit there. Little bit there. These are metal parts, so they have a little more friction, so you want to apply either heavier oil or a greater percent grease. Okay, so after that, we're just going to add a little drop of oil to each of these and some oil to the central gear. Okay, with that done, we'll add a little bit of oil to each of these bearings to help them spin just as smooth as possible. Again, I'm being very careful not to add too much lubricant here because, yeah, that's the whole point of taking it apart in the first place. Okay, so I'm going to hold on to this little nub right here that sticks out and carefully thread this. Come on, carefully thread this shell back on. I'm gonna push in these clips here. These are what are preventing it from going on. Wow, these are really not being cooperative. Boy. Okay, there we go. No, come on, go on. Well, this back does not seem to want to go on. Who's surprised there? Okay, so we're just gonna take this and try and kind of carefully thread it first onto these 4 little prongs right here, and then onto the clips on each end. So straight on, and then you want to be careful not to let it slip onto one of these clips too far. It's only on a tad on the front clip. Even that might be a little too far. Now start on the back, come to the front, there we go. Okay. Now we're just gonna, no. Okay. What happened was these prongs were sticking out the front. Yeah, under no circumstances should those prongs stick out the front. We're gonna try once again. These are very rewarding to get back together, but darned if they're easy. So after a bit of rather frustrating off-camera work with this, I finally figured out why these wouldn't go together. On this first one, a few whacks right on the front here at the end of the screwdriver seemed to work. But on the second one, I just couldn't get the sucker together. And it just wasn't going, it wasn't going, it wasn't going. And what'll happen is you'll put this piece on top, and the front just won't come down. And I finally figured out what it is. See this piece right here? This can slide back and forth just a tad. And that is just enough to block these clips right here from coming up. So you have to make sure that you keep this screw set just as close to the middle as you can. Heftier screwdriver. Here we are. Okay, so that did not go according to plan. Well, no one's perfect. Okay, let's set this in here. Put this bearing back on here. Slide it in. Okay. Try 2. Bearing slipped out the back again. So here is the old athearn 5-pole. I believe it's 5-pole. It's been a while since I've been in here. I'm going to start by just disconnecting this screw here, which holds this wire that's attached to the light on the chassis, so that we can move the motor independently of the chassis. Okay, so as you can see, I don't know if you can see, let me take this front plate. Is this front plate? Yeah, this front plate holds all the brushes on. And it very conveniently comes off with 1 screw. Literally 1 screw. So you just kind of undo that screw and you wiggle it out. Be careful, careful, careful not to lose those brushes. I've got one there. Oh, the other's also in its place. It's just its spring is still here. Okay, so as you can see, that commutator's a little dirty. Nothing terrible. We're gonna clean it up, clean up the brushes. It appears to have a little oil on it. I did not mean to oil the commutator. Must have just slipped on from a bearing. But yeah, let me grab a Q-tip and we can clean this up. Okay, so we're just going to clean up this motor here. Have a Q-tip. One end is dry, one end has just standard rubbing alcohol on it. And we're just going to brush up this commutator with it. You can do it where you just put a drip or 2 of rubbing alcohol on the commutator and then allow the motor to do kind of its own thing, cleaning it up. But this isn't a hard commutator to get to, and so why not? Okay, now that we've kind of gotten the oil off of it, let us remove the oil from the brushes. So we're just going to try and pop the brushes out of here ever so gently. Come on. Ever so gently, yeah. Okay, here's one of our brushes. And we're just gonna put a little alcohol on there and wipe the end off just in case there's any grease there. Same with around the end, because we wouldn't want any of that ending up in the commutator, because otherwise you have the endlessly dirty commutator, which is not a problem that anybody wants to have. Okay, here's our second bearing. Yeah, you can see that left grease mark when it fell. So obviously there's some grease on it somewhere. So we're gonna clean that off, clean the actual face of the brush, just wipe that down. Okay, this brush goes back in this side. Actually, first we'll, just for safety, because we have the time, we'll wipe that down just in case there's any oil whatsoever on it. Now I'm just going to attempt to drop this, there we go, that bearing right into place, center it, okay. Now that we've cleaned the bearings, we need to clean these little gaps in the motor. I'm just going to take a toothpick here, anything that's not metal, not real hard, and pointy at work. You just want to clean these gaps because stuff can get caught in here, and then it will burn, and that's a bad thing because it makes your motor stinky. which makes it less efficient and not as enjoyable to run. So as you can see, both ends of the tube, oops, got a little oil on there. Must have been a little oil hiding in that crevice. Okay, I think that's all 5. As you can no doubt see, the ends of this toothpick are definitely a little black, so we definitely got some stuff out of there. Now, whether that was bits of the brushes, bits of dark colored oil, not exactly sure. But good news is we have them out. Okay, now we're going to just remount this plate that holds the brushes. Oh, that would help if I mounted it the right way. Here we are. I'm trying to hold this brush in so that it doesn't pop out just like that. Okay, now we're just going to take our screw and pop it in right here. Taking her down. Okay, now the other brush goes in right here, and then this spring goes in like so. Oh, do I need... You're kidding. Nope, don't. Good. Wasn't really looking forward to taking that plate back off. Okay, so this end of the spring goes here, and then this piece you need to pick up and set here. Rotate the spring until it's straight, and the spring goes into the gap in the brush there. Oh yeah, that feels to be spinning very nicely. Let's give it a test. Okay, so I have leads. There's definitely some power in them. We'll just put one directly onto the motor, and then one goes over here, or actually on the other side rather, over here on the isolated brush. So let's see if this works. Oh yeah, works no problem. It's a good old champ. Okay, let's get this back on the chassis, and the chassis back together, and the locomotive back together. So first we're going to reassemble these trucks. You just take one of these pieces. This should slide right over. You can put a dab of oil in the ends if you want. I didn't remove the oil that was in there, so I trust there's plenty. Then you take these 2 little pieces. One should have kind of a bump on it. The other should have a hole through it. They fit right together like that. And those go on. Then the far side of the truck slides right on. Well, in theory it does. And then there is a friction fit here, so don't be afraid to squeeze it a little bit to get it to sit right. And then you take your screw, make sure you still have that little insulation washer on there, and you reinsert it. And then, if I can find my screwdriver, here we are, just tighten this down. Again, it might kind of get a little tougher, but make sure that you tighten it all the way down so that that friction fit pin is doing its job. Yep, there we go. Okay, we're just going to do the same thing with the other truck here. I have to say these are quite an interesting old truck design. Oh dear. We get this backwards. Nope, we did not get this backwards. Good. These are quite an interesting old truck design. Most trucks today have the worm gear up here instead of the obviously much bigger gear, that just regular gear that is seen on here. I really don't know why athearn decided to put brass worm gears in the trucks. I don't know if that's an aftermarket modification by someone. I'm really not sure. Like I said, I just picked this up for $10 at a train show, and all the guy told me was it needed to have its wheels cleaned because they were so crazy oxidized they wouldn't fit, or they wouldn't pick up any power whatsoever off the track. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and thread our truck up onto here. These tabs right here are what this little bump, if you can see that little bump right there on the truck sits in, and that's what actually bears the locomotive's weight. So you want to make sure those are properly aligned. Okay, there we go. And if you'll recall from earlier, just take these little U-shaped clips and you slide them underneath the drive axle. You squeeze them a little, and you just put them right in. These, I have to say, these are kind of an ingenious method of holding the trucks in. The modern Atherns are actually much harder to, or not modern, blue box era Atherns are much harder to get the trucks off on. And so then in order to attach this wire, we're just going to actually take this screw on the truck that we tightened earlier, we're just going to give it, rotation and a half backwards to back it off. Then you're just going to kind of push this in. It should slide right in, get caught between the bump and the hole in the opposite little tab right there. Then you can just, looks like mine's a little off, there we go. You can just tighten it back down, and that should hold it rather securely in place. We'll do the same thing here on this rear truck. Just loosen that by a turn or two. Insert a little circular eye that's attached to the end of this, and then put it back on. For our motor, I have not forgotten, we have our washers, one of which appears to stick to me, both of which stick to my slightly oily hands. So in order to do this, we just get the motor oriented, right? Here we are. Get it fed onto this drive shaft. Just choose one, it doesn't matter. Actually, I'm going to set these washers down. Choose a drive shaft, it just has a key in it. Make sure that you get the key lined up with the key in the receiver. Using your eyes to kind of align, get them roughly aligned first can help instead of spinning. But, whatever works for you. There we go, got that side on. And that can move back. And then we'll just do the same thing on this side. Okay, now we'll just very carefully, probably should have put these washers on first, actually. Yeah, should definitely put these washers on first. There we go. There's one. There's two. I really don't know if these washers came standard. I have no clue why they're in here. Except perhaps maybe the chassis was a little short or something. So whoever had this before me just added it to make it run a little smoother. Okay, now that was a poor idea. Okay, so I put the motor on off screen. As it turns out, it's very tricky to get these washers to stay in place down here. As the magnets on the motor are constantly trying to grab them off of here, and are trying to keep it on here. So it took a while, but I did eventually get the motor in. I also tightened the headlight down because for some reason that was loose. This arm that holds it up here was. All that's left now is put the cab back on. I need to be careful over here that this wire stays inside, doesn't come out. Just kind of threading it down over, just kind of gently. Real careful. Making sure we're not pinching any wires. I don't see any wires getting pinched. There we are. One completed locomotive. Let's see how it works. Well, we once again have our little test track set up. I'm going to turn the controller on, put the locomotive on the track, and we'll see if we made any improvement. At the very least, we got all the excess lubricant out of there, so it should help it, help its longevity. Okay, so I'm going to turn the controller on, and put the locomotive on the track here. There we go. And now I'm going to put some power in the track. think you can hear the motor. Switch the direction. That's terrible. Well, everyone, it's the next day now. The engine was making some really weird noises when I put it back together last night. It sounded like gears grinding. So I opened it back up, went through it, couldn't find anything particularly wrong. Ran it back and forth a few times, and it seems to have kind of resolved itself. That may have just been the oil working itself and the grease working itself in. I'm not sure, but either way, I thought I'd show you the results. Put the engine on the track here. The wires. Okay, I'm turning on the power, and I'm going to put, 8-volt track, something like that, about half power. Come on, do something. See what kind of crawling this can do. It does have somewhat dirty wheels, so. Well, I wouldn't say it's going to win any competitions, but that's really not bad for an old athearn.